The last day of the college entrance exam arrived like a storm I never saw coming. It was one of those moments in life where time feels like it slows down, where every little detail becomes etched in your memory as if it is trying to remind you of something important. The room smelled of stale coffee, sweat, and a mix of nervous energy from my classmates, who were all huddled in their own little worlds. The last exam was politics, and it was my last chance to prove I was still in control, despite everything falling apart around me. But then, there was him, Ethan Blake. I hadn't spoken to him for over a week. It wasn't that I didn't want to. I just couldn't bring myself to look at him anymore, let alone have a conversation. It wasn't a simple fight. It wasn't a misunderstanding. What Ethan did was unforgivable, and deep down, I knew that the boy I'd been in love with for years was gone. At noon, during the lunch break, I had sat down at my desk, feeling exhausted from the endless cycle of tests and revision. A small part of me wanted to shut my eyes and sleep the entire afternoon away. But sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford, especially not now, with one final exam left. I tried to focus, hoping the quiet could drown out the chaos of my thoughts, but then I felt a tap on my shoulder. I opened my eyes to find Ethan Blake standing over me, his face a mix of hesitation and uncertainty, like he didn't know what to do with himself. "Hey," he said, his voice soft, almost apologetic. "You okay?" It was a stupid question. I wasn't okay. How could I be? The way he said it so casual, so wrong, it made everything I'd been feeling rise up to the surface. I couldn't look at him without feeling that knot in my stomach tightening. "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile, trying to sound indifferent. "I'm just tired. The exams are draining." His eyes flickered with something guilt, maybe, but then his usual playful grin returned, and it was as if nothing had happened. As if he hadn't destroyed everything we had just a few days ago. "I was thinking of grabbing lunch with some of the guys," he said, ignoring the obvious tension between us. "Want to join us?" It was a slap in the face. How could he ask me to eat with him and his friends, after everything? After the way he humiliated me before the politics exam, as if I were some kind of joke. As if my feelings didn't matter? I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. I was too angry to speak, too hurt to form words. He didn't deserve my words. He didn't deserve any of me. But he was persistent, wasn't he? Always the charming, persistent Ethan, who never took no for an answer. "Come on," he insisted. "It'll be fun. We're all just messing around, you know?" His words felt like a punch to my gut. Messing around? That's what he called it. Humiliating me in front of his friends, calling me ugly just because he lost a stupid game. "I'm good, Ethan," I said, my voice harder than I intended. "I'm fine. I don't need your pity." His smile faltered for a split second, and that was the moment I saw it, the doubt in his eyes. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by his usual cocky demeanor, as though nothing had happened. "All right, suit yourself," he shrugged, turning to walk away, but not before calling over his shoulder. "Hey, Ava, don't take everything so seriously. It was just a game." I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. My blood was boiling, but I didn't let him see it. I just stared at his retreating figure, my mind racing. Just a game? How could he still think of it that way? Did he really not understand the damage he had done? The way his words had torn apart everything we had built? But in that moment, something shifted within me. I realized that I had been holding on to a dream of who I thought Ethan Blake was. But the reality was much harsher. He wasn't the person I had loved for all those years. And I wasn't the person who would stand by and let him destroy me again. My gaze shifted to the clock on the wall. There was no more time for him. There was no more time for wasted thoughts, for obsessing over someone who clearly didn't care about me the way I cared about him. It was time to move on. I grabbed my bag, stood up, and walked out of the study hall, my mind set on one thing. This was my future, and it didn't have room for Ethan Blake anymore. The hallway was quieter now. The sound of footsteps echoed faintly off the walls as I walked toward the exit, ignoring the lingering whispers of Ethan and his friends. My heart still raced from the encounter, but there was something new in the pit of my stomach: determination. I reached for my phone, checking the time. The last exam was only an hour away, and I knew I had to make every second count. I walked past the library, the place I would have normally gone to for some last-minute studying. But today, the library felt like a prison, a reminder of everything I was leaving behind. I had been fooling myself for too long, believing in the promise of forever that Ethan had made, believing that all the years we'd spent together meant something. But now, as I stood outside the building, I saw it all clearly. Our paths had already split. And no matter how many times Ethan tried to come back, he could never undo the damage he had done. As I walked to the exam room, I saw the glint of sunlight breaking through the clouds outside. It felt like a metaphor, like the sky was trying to remind me that, even though things were over, there was a new day ahead, a better day. The exam was tough. It wasn't just the questions on the paper. It was the weight of everything that had happened before. Each answer felt like a small victory, each moment of focus a personal triumph. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan was somewhere out there, distracting me with his charm and his empty apologies. I had to push him out of my mind. I had to focus. Finally, the exam was over. I walked out of the room with a sense of relief, the weight on my shoulders starting to lift. As I made my way down the hallway, I saw Ethan again, his friends still gathered around him, laughing, carefree. He looked up and saw me approaching. His face immediately softened, as if he thought he could charm me back into his world with just that smile. "Ava," he called, his voice too bright to fake. "Hey, come on, I was waiting for you. We're all going to celebrate after the exams. You deserve to unwind." It would have been easy to say yes. It would have been easy to pretend that nothing had changed, that everything was fine. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I wasn't the girl who would stand by while he played games with my heart. "I'm fine, Ethan," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I've got other plans." He blinked, caught off guard. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of concern in his eyes, but it disappeared too quickly to be sure. Instead, his usual cocky grin returned. All right. No need to be so serious," he shrugged. "I get it. You've got your own things to do. But just know, I didn't mean to hurt you." I almost laughed. Didn't mean to hurt me? If only it were that simple. But I knew better than to waste my time on him anymore. He wasn't capable of understanding the damage he had caused. I turned away, walking towards the exit without looking back. Ethan's voice followed me, calling after me in vain, but I didn't respond. I wasn't going to let him pull me back into his mess. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts about Ethan, about the future, about what I was supposed to do next. For so long, my life had been about him. I had built my world around him, around the idea of us being together, of everything falling into place the way it was supposed to. But now, as I sat on my bed, staring at the ceiling, I realized that the world I had imagined wasn't real. It was just a fantasy, and that fantasy was over. I grabbed my phone and opened the app I'd been avoiding all day, social media. I didn't know why I did it. Maybe I just needed to see if everything was still the same. There was a post from Leela Monroe. Of course, there was. She was everywhere now. It didn't take much to figure out that Ethan had moved on from me. The post was a picture of her and Ethan, smiling and laughing, tagged at some random calf. The caption, "Celebrating new beginnings, one step at a time." My heart twisted in my chest. I knew it was coming, but seeing it was different. The reality of it, the way they were posing so casually, like everything was fine, like I had never existed. It was too much. I scrolled through the comments. Some people were congratulating them, others were sending hearts and well wishes, but there were a few that caught my eye. "Wait, isn't Ava the girl he used to be with?" One person commented. "What happened to her?" Another person replied, "She's probably still mad. Wouldn't be surprised if she didn't let go easily." I wanted to scream, to shout at them, to remind them that it wasn't about me being mad. It was about respect. It was about the betrayal I felt from someone I had trusted more than anyone else. But then, I saw another comment. It was from someone I didn't know, someone who must have seen the post and felt some kind of sympathy for me. I saw what happened. If Ethan really cared about Ava, he wouldn't have treated her like that. "Trust me, she's better off without him." That was all it took. One comment, one stranger validating my pain, made me feel seen. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't alone in this. And that thought, that feeling, became the fuel I needed. I put my phone down, a sense of resolve building inside me. I wasn't going to let Ethan's actions define me. I wasn't going to let the past hold me hostage any longer. The future was mine, and I was going to take it. The following days were a blur of activity. Exam results came and went. The aftermath of Ethan's betrayal lingered, but I forced myself to focus. I spent hours in the library, studying for the university applications I had secretly been researching for weeks. If there was one thing I knew for sure, it was that my future didn't depend on someone who couldn't even keep a promise. I wasn't going to let that heartbreak define me. I kept hearing Ethan's voice in my head. It was just a game. It echoed, mocking me, every time I tried to concentrate. But what really hurt was how easily he had discarded me, as if our years of friendship and love were nothing. All for a girl like Leila Monroe, who wore her beauty like a shield, using it to manipulate everyone around her. I couldn't even bring myself to hate her. What good would it do? It wasn't her fault. Ethan had made his choices. It was his, and he had chosen her over me. My friends, Adis and Claire, kept trying to pull me out of my shell. They dragged me out for coffee, kept my mind occupied, and assured me that life went on. But no matter how many times they said it, I couldn't shake the feeling that a part of me was left behind, somewhere, with Ethan Blake. Then, one evening, as I was about to pack up my things and head home, I received a message. It was from Ethan. My heart skipped a beat, but I refused to let the excitement or hope well up inside me. I had moved past him, but I opened it anyway. It read, "Ava, I know I messed up. I've been thinking about everything, and I need to apologize. Can we meet up and talk? I'll make things right, please." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to respond. Part of me wanted to hear him say the things I had been waiting to hear. But another part of me, stronger now, harder now, wanted to block him, erase him from my life completely. I thought about what my mom always said: don't let anyone dictate your worth, not even those you love, especially not them. The irony was hard to ignore. Ethan had spent so long thinking he could control everything, manipulate the situation to his advantage. He was too used to the idea that I would always be there, waiting for him to come back. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I texted back, "I'm not interested in hearing anything you have to say." I hit send without a second thought. My finger lingered on the screen, waiting for him to respond, but I didn't care if he did. I had made my decision. There was nothing left for me to say to him. It felt good to hit send. For once, I wasn't the one who was waiting. And in that moment, I realized something that had been gnawing at me for days. I didn't need closure from him. I needed to close this chapter myself. That night, I went to bed early. I had a new sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction in knowing I had finally taken control. The next few days passed by without any major events, nothing that would shake me at least. I kept my focus on the future, the university I had chosen, and the new opportunities awaiting me. But then, everything shifted once again. It started with a social media notification, a post. It was from Leila Monroe. I almost didn't open it, but I couldn't help myself. My fingers seemed to move on their own. This time, it wasn't a picture of her and Ethan. It was something far worse. It was a screenshot of the conversation between Ethan and one of his friends, the one who had been with him the day after the political exam. The text was shocking, cruel even. The message read, "I didn't want to lose her, man. But if I had to, I thought maybe I could make her jealous. It was just a game, right? I mean, what's the harm? I thought if I pushed her away, she'd come back to me. But I guess I was wrong." Leila's caption. Funny how people think they can play with others' hearts like it's nothing. I wonder if Ethan will ever understand the price of his actions. If you truly love someone, you don't make them feel worthless just to get a reaction. I read it again and again, the words sinking in deeper each time. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. Ethan had said it was a game. He'd used me to win Leila's favor, knowing I was in the background, quietly waiting. He had manipulated me for his own benefit, all the while thinking that I would always be there, ready to forgive him. Leila wasn't just exposing him, she was making sure the world knew what kind of person he truly was. And for the first time in days, I felt something rise up inside me. A burning anger, yes, but also something else. Something I hadn't allowed myself to feel for so long. Justice. The world needed to know the truth about Ethan Blake. He didn't deserve sympathy, and he didn't deserve forgiveness, not from me, not from anyone. I immediately screenshot the post. Then, before I could second guess myself, I shared it. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't need to. The truth was all I needed to say. The responses came in waves. Some people were shocked, others disgusted, and a few still stood by Ethan, claiming he'd made a mistake. But there was no turning back. He had humiliated me in front of everyone, and now it was my turn to expose him. The support I received from friends and even strangers was overwhelming. But the most satisfying part of it all? Ethan's silence. He didn't reply. He didn't try to explain himself. He didn't try to apologize. And for the first time since all of this began, I felt the weight of everything I had carried for so long begin to lift. It wasn't long before the aftermath of my post spread like wildfire. The confession wall at school was flooded with comments, messages, and heated discussions. People who once whispered behind my back were now speaking openly, and I felt a strange sense of power as I watched the drama unfold. But more than anything, I felt a sense of justice. Ethan Blake had wanted to play a game with my heart, and now he was the one left to deal with the consequences of his actions. A week passed, and life moved on, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of lingering tension every time I walked through the halls of the school. People talked about Ethan, about me, about what had happened. Some called me brave, others too harsh, but no one could deny the truth. Ethan's reputation was crumbling, piece by piece. One afternoon, as I walked out of class, I spotted him. Ethan Blake. He was standing by his locker, his back turned to me. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his posture seemed stiffer than usual. When he turned around and saw me, I almost didn't recognize him. There was no confident smile on his face, no cocky grin, just a hollow stare, full of confusion and regret. "Ava," he said softly, his voice tight as if each word was forced out. "Can we talk?" I didn't respond immediately. I wasn't sure what to say. The anger was still there, bubbling beneath the surface, but there was something else now, something I hadn't expected to feel. Pity. What had happened to him? The Ethan I once knew, the one who would have never apologized without a fight, the one who would have gone to any length to win me back, was gone. Instead, there was a broken version of him standing before me, looking as if he couldn't understand how everything had fallen apart so fast. "I don't know what to say to you, Ethan," I said finally, my voice steady, but laced with something bitter. "You had your chance, and you threw it away." He swallowed hard, his eyes flicking down to the floor before meeting mine again. I know I messed up, Ava. I thought." "You thought what?" I cut in, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "That I would wait around for you forever? That you could humiliate me, and I'd just forgive you because you were sorry?" He winced at my words as if they physically stung. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I never did. It was just, I got confused. I thought I had to choose between you and Leela, and I—" "Stop," I interrupted, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and something deeper, something that made my chest tighten. "You didn't have to choose. You chose her. And now, you've lost me, forever." I turned to walk away, but something stopped me. Ethan's hand shot out, grabbing my arm gently, but firmly. I felt the heat of his touch through my sleeve. It sent a shiver down my spine, not in the way it once did. No longer comforting, no longer safe. "Ava, please, don't do this. I'm sorry. I was an idiot. I never meant to make you feel like this." I shook my head, pulling away from his grip. "No, Ethan, you weren't an idiot. You were selfish. You chose someone else because it was easier, because it was convenient. And I won't be the one to clean up your mess anymore. I won't be the backup girl." I saw the flash of hurt in his eyes, and for a moment, I almost regretted it. But then I remembered all the times I had let him get away with things, all the moments I had let him off the hook. This time, there would be no forgiveness. This time, I was done. The next few days were tense, but I felt stronger. I wasn't living in his shadow anymore. I wasn't pretending that everything could go back to how it used to be. I had my own plans now, my own life to build. And nothing, not even Ethan Blake, was going to stop me. But as I walked into the school library one afternoon, there was a new message on my phone. It was from Leela Monroe. I opened it with a sense of trepidation. I hadn't heard from her since the post had gone viral, and honestly, I didn't expect to hear from her now. But there it was, a single message simply reading, "I'm sorry for what happened. I didn't mean to hurt you, Ava. I thought he cared about me, but I was wrong. I didn't realize how much I was dragging you into this." I stared at the message, stunned. I had never expected an apology from her. After everything, I had assumed she was just as much of a player in all of this as Ethan had been. But here she was, acknowledging her role in the mess. I didn't know what to think. I had spent so much time being angry at Ethan, blaming him for everything. But now, with her words, I realized something. She wasn't the only one who had been manipulated. She had fallen for the same lies, the same false promises. She had been another victim of Ethan's selfishness. I typed back a quick response. It's not just you, Leela. Ethan did this. We're all victims in his game, but I'm done being one of his pawns. A few minutes later, her reply came through. I understand. I'll back off. I know I can't fix everything, but I hope we can both move on. It wasn't much, but it was something. And as I closed my phone and set it aside, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. I wasn't holding on to anger anymore. I wasn't holding on to the past. The next week, Ethan approached me again. This time, there was no apology, no plea for forgiveness, just silence. He had been watching me from a distance, waiting for me to crack, waiting for me to show weakness. But he had underestimated me. I wasn't the girl who would fall for his charm anymore, and I wasn't the girl who would take him back after everything he had done. As time passed, the sting of Ethan's betrayal slowly dulled. I focused on my studies, kept my distance from the drama, and allowed myself to breathe freely again. The college applications were submitted, the waiting period began, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't tied down by the weight of my past. I was free, truly free. But of course, life doesn't always allow us to be comfortable for too long. Just when I thought I had everything under control, when I convinced myself that I had finally moved on from Ethan, something unexpected happened. It came in the form of a new guy. His name was Alexander West. I met him through a student club, a group that was formed to help organize events for prospective university applicants. At first, I didn't think much of it, just another club, just another guy. But there was something about him, something different. He wasn't like Ethan, that was for sure. Alexander didn't have that cocky arrogance that made you question his sincerity. He didn't play games, didn't hide behind a smile, and most importantly, he didn't try to manipulate anyone into liking him. He was genuine, calm, and refreshingly honest. It was hard to ignore the way he made me feel. It wasn't the same fluttering feeling Ethan used to give me, that overwhelming rush of excitement. Instead, it was peace and comfort. I wasn't looking for romance. Honestly, I didn't even know if I was ready for it. After everything with Ethan, my heart was still scarred. I needed time, but there was something about Alexander that made me want to take a chance again. One evening, as the club meeting wrapped up, he walked up to me with a smile that seemed to reach his eyes. Hey, Ava, I was wondering if you'd like to grab a coffee with me. Just as friends, he said, his tone casual, but I could hear the sincerity in it. I hesitated for a moment. It had been a while since I'd allowed myself to let someone in, but maybe it was time. Sure, I said, trying to sound calm, even though my heart raced in a way it hadn't in a long time. We walked to a small cafe nearby, the kind of place where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and the quiet hum of conversation created an atmosphere that felt like a safe haven. We sat at a corner table, far from the noise, and talked. It was simple, just two people sharing stories. There was no pressure, no expectation, just the enjoyment of good conversation. As the evening wore on, I found myself laughing. It was easy to talk to him, easy to forget the walls I had spent so much time building around myself. He didn't push me to talk about the past, didn't ask probing questions about what had happened with Ethan. He just let me be, and that felt like a relief. By the time we finished our coffee, I realized I had spent hours with him without even noticing. It felt good, better than I expected. Thanks for tonight, Ava, he said as we walked out of the cafe. I really enjoyed talking to you. I smiled, genuinely this time. I did too. I didn't realize how much I needed a break from everything. He smiled back, and I felt something stir inside me. Not a flutter, not the rush of infatuation, but something warmer, something steadier. Maybe we can do it again sometime, he suggested. I nodded. I'd like that. The next few weeks passed quickly. Alexander and I met up more often, studying together, having casual hangouts, and sharing small moments that made everything feel lighter. It was refreshing to be around someone who didn't carry baggage, someone who wasn't caught up in their own drama. But despite the growing connection, there was still that nagging voice in the back of my mind. The one that wondered if I was just running away from my feelings for Ethan. The one that warned me not to rush into anything just because Alexander made me feel safe. And yet, every time I saw him, every time we shared a quiet moment, that voice became a little quieter. I wasn't ready to give my heart away again, but I was ready to open myself up, slowly, carefully. With Alexander, I didn't have to pretend. I could just be me. It was around this time that my exam results came in. I had done it. I had surpassed all my expectations. I was accepted into my first choice university, and the realization hit me hard. This was it. The new chapter of my life was beginning, and it wasn't a chapter that included Ethan Blake. I had earned this. I had fought for this moment through heartbreak, betrayal, and doubt. I had done this on my own without anyone else holding my hand, without relying on anyone else's promises. I sat on my bed, staring at the acceptance letter, the weight of everything I had accomplished settling in. There was a part of me that still mourned the future I had imagined with Ethan. But now I knew that wasn't the life I was meant to live. I wasn't going to let him or anyone else dictate my happiness. The day I received my results, I ran into Ethan. It wasn't planned, and to be honest, I had hoped I wouldn't have to see him again. But there he was, standing by the school gates, looking like he had just been through a storm. His eyes immediately locked with mine, and for a brief second, I saw something in them, a mixture of guilt and longing. He opened his mouth to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. "I don't need your apology, Ethan," I said, my voice firm. "And I don't need you in my life anymore. I'm moving on, and so should you." His face paled, and for the first time since I had known him, I saw vulnerability in his eyes. "Ava, please, I know," I interrupted, shaking my head. "You don't get to make things right. You don't get to fix this. It's over." I didn't wait for him to respond. I turned and walked away, my heart pounding in my chest. But this time, the pain was different. It wasn't the sharp ache of betrayal. It wasn't the wound of unrequited love. It was the quiet, steady satisfaction of knowing that I was walking away from something toxic, something that had held me back for far too long. It wasn't long after that encounter with Ethan that I realized just how much had changed. I had been carrying so much emotional weight for so long that I didn't even recognize the freedom I gained until it was already here, until I could feel the lightness in my chest, the weight lifting off my shoulders. It was as if a huge burden had been released, and I could finally breathe again. University preparations started, and with it, new challenges and new people. My days were filled with applications, final decisions, and most importantly, the overwhelming excitement of what was to come. I kept myself busy, focused. The past was behind me, and I had no intention of looking back. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. It was a Sunday when I received an unexpected text. It was from Alexander. We hadn't talked for a couple of days. He had been busy with his own university decisions, and I had been wrapped up in my own life. But this message felt different. "Ava, I need to talk to you. Can you meet me tomorrow? It's important." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. The feeling of unease bubbled up in my chest. Alexander had been the bright spot in my life recently, the person who made me smile, who helped me feel like I could move on. But the urgency in his message felt off. Something wasn't right. I replied, my fingers shaking slightly. "Sure. What's going on?" His response came quickly. "I'll explain when we meet. Please trust me." My heart raced. There was something in his words, in the way he phrased things, that sent a chill down my spine. The unease deepened, but I agreed. I had to know what was going on. The next day, I met Alexander in the small cafe we had gone to a few weeks before. I arrived early, trying to calm my nerves, but I could already tell something was off when he walked in. His usual confident demeanor was gone. His face was tight, his expression unreadable. "Hey," I greeted, trying to sound casual, but my voice came out more fragile than I wanted. He sat down across from me, his hands resting on the table, his eyes locked on the surface of the wood. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was suffocating, heavy with something unspoken. Finally, Alexander broke the silence. "Ava, I need to tell you something. It's something I should have told you earlier, and I'm sorry I didn't." I waited for him to continue, but my heart was already pounding in my chest. Something told me this wasn't going to be good. "I didn't tell you this before, but I've known Ethan for years," he said quietly, his voice low. "He and I were friends back when he was in the same circle as me." I froze. My mind raced. trying to piece together what he was saying. Ethan? What did he have to do with any of this? You knew Ethan? I repeated, trying to mask the sting in my voice. So what? Are you telling me this now because you think that changes everything? Alexander shook his head, his eyes meeting mine with a sincerity that almost made me second-guess everything. No, it's not that. It's just, Ava, I need you to understand something. Ethan, he told me everything. About you. About the games he played with you. And what happened with Leela. And he asked me for help. The blood drained from my face. I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. Help? What do you mean help? He asked me. Alexander continued, his voice tight, to get close to you, to get you to trust me, so he could get you back. I blinked. The words didn't make sense. What are you talking about? Why would you do that? I didn't know what to think at first, Alexander said, looking down at his hands. But when he kept insisting, I thought maybe it was just some stupid plan to fix things. I didn't know you'd been hurt so badly by him. I didn't know everything. I stood up so quickly that the chair scraped loudly against the floor, sending a jolt of sound through the room. My pulse raced, my mind a whirlwind. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. You used me? I whispered, the words tasting like acid in my mouth. No, Alexander pleaded, standing up too. I didn't want to use you. I swear. I never wanted to hurt you. But I was stuck, Ava. I thought I could. Maybe fix things. I couldn't look at him. My vision blurred, the weight of betrayal sinking deep into my bones. The trust I had given him, the warmth I had felt, it all crumbled in an instant. I trusted you, I said, the words coming out low and broken. I thought you were different. I am different, Alexander said quickly, his voice desperate. I never meant for it to go this far. I never meant for you to get hurt. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to slap him, scream at him for everything he had done. But part of me still saw the kindness in him, still saw the person who had made me smile when I thought I couldn't smile anymore. But this was too much. You've got to be kidding me, I whispered, stepping back. You're just another player in Ethan's game. You're just as much a part of it as he is. Ava, please, let me explain, he pleaded, his hands shaking. I didn't want any of this. I care about you, but I didn't know how to fix it. I shook my head. You had your chance. I'm done. With that, I turned and walked out, not looking back. I didn't want to see the look on his face. I didn't want to hear his apologies. I didn't want to know anything more. That night, I sat in my room, numb, staring at the wall. My heart hurt, but it wasn't the same kind of hurt I'd felt with Ethan. This was different. This was a betrayal from someone I thought could be trusted. Someone who had been kind to me, who had made me believe again. But it was all a lie. And the worst part was that I had fallen for it. The next few days were a blur of emotions I couldn't quite understand. I had thought I was done with betrayal, done with the games Ethan and Leela had played with my heart. But now here I was, dealing with the aftermath of Alexander's deception. I couldn't shake the feeling of being a fool, of trusting the wrong person again. I spent days locked in my room, barely talking to anyone, barely eating. I didn't want to feel sorry for myself, but I couldn't help it. I had opened my heart to someone again, only to have it ripped away from me. Every text from Alexander went unanswered. Every call was ignored. I couldn't bring myself to speak to him. He had lied to me, used me as a pawn in someone else's game. And no matter how much he pleaded or how sincere he sounded, I couldn't forgive him. Not yet. But even in the darkness of those days, I knew one thing. I couldn't let this define me. I couldn't let his mistake, or Ethan's, take away everything I had worked for. I had already been to the bottom, already felt the sting of betrayal. There was no point in staying there. One evening, as I sat in the kitchen, staring at the pile of untouched notes for my university application, my mother walked in. She didn't say anything at first, just sat down across from me, her gaze kind and understanding. You've been distant lately, she said quietly, her voice gentle. I know you're hurt, sweetheart, but you can't let these people keep you from moving forward. I know you feel betrayed, but you have to see what they've taken from you. Nothing. You're still the same girl, the same strong, beautiful, smart girl. You've got a future waiting for you. Her words pierced through the fog in my mind, cutting through the self-pity I had wrapped myself in. I looked up at her, meeting her eyes, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. You're right. I said, my voice shaky but growing stronger with each word. I've been letting them control me, letting them take so much of my focus. But not anymore. My mother smiled, her eyes soft with affection. Good, it's time you put yourself first. The next morning, I woke up with a new sense of determination. I couldn't keep running from the past, from the people who had hurt me. I had to face it head on, let it all out, and walk away stronger. There was no point in hiding from the truth anymore. I sent Alexander one final message. It was short, direct, and final. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I've made my decision. I'm done. And with that, I blocked him. His number, his social media, everything. It felt freeing, in a way I hadn't expected, as if I had finally taken control over something that had been out of my hands for far too long. The rest of the day passed in a haze of quiet reflection. I couldn't erase the pain I had felt, the sense of betrayal, but I knew I was better off without him. I was stronger now. I had learned the hard way that not everyone could be trusted. But that didn't mean I had to shut myself off from the world. And then came the unexpected part. That evening, I received a message from an unknown number. I stared at the screen for a moment, hesitant. I wasn't in the mood for more lies or deceit, but something about the message made me curious. It read, Ava, I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm just asking for the chance to explain. I owe you that much. Please, can we meet? It was from Ethan. I stared at the words, a strange mix of emotions stirring in my chest. Part of me wanted to delete it without reading another word, to close that door for good and never look back. But then another part of me, something quieter, more vulnerable, wanted to know what he had to say. Maybe it was the fact that no matter how much he hurt me, no matter how much he lied, Ethan had once been my everything. Maybe it was the hope that somewhere in him, the boy I once knew still existed. But deep down, I knew this wasn't about him anymore. It was about me, about moving on, about not letting his actions define me. I closed the message without responding, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. There was no more holding on to the past, no more wondering what could have been. It was time to let go completely. A few weeks later, the results came in. My future, the one I had worked so hard for, was finally set in stone. I had gotten into one of the best universities in the country, exactly where I had wanted to go. And as I read the acceptance letter, I realized that despite everything I had been through, I was stronger than I had ever been. The moment was bittersweet. I thought about everything I had lost, the love, the trust, the friendship, and yet, I also realized how much I had gained. I had found my own strength, my own voice, and nothing, not even Ethan or Alexander, could take that away from me. The day before I was set to leave for university, I ran into Ethan again. I hadn't seen him in weeks, and part of me thought I would never have to see him again. But there he was, standing across the street, looking lost and tired. His eyes met mine, and for a moment, it felt like time stood still. But then he took a step toward me, and something inside me snapped. I'm sorry, Ava, he said quietly. I've been a fool. I've hurt you in ways I can't take back. But I want you to know I'll always regret what I did. I looked at him for a long moment, my heart pounding. But this time, I wasn't broken. I wasn't angry. I was just done. I don't need your apology, Ethan, I said softly. I've moved on, and so should you. With that, I turned and walked away, my steps firm, my future ahead of me. And for the first time, I didn't look back. The weeks flew by faster than I could keep up with. University life was a whirlwind of new faces, new challenges, and new opportunities. It was everything I had dreamed of and more. Every day felt like a step further away from the past, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the lies. I was finally free. I had my own space now, my own schedule, and the weight that had once sat heavily on my chest was gone. I still thought about the people who had hurt me, Ethan, Alexander, and even Leela, but it no longer consumed me. They were part of my past now, and I had nothing left to prove to them. I had moved on. I had learned to trust myself. One afternoon, as I walked across campus, my phone buzzed. It was an unfamiliar number, and for a moment, I hesitated. But curiosity got the best of me, and I opened the message. Ava, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I heard about your acceptance, and I just wanted to say, congratulations. I'm proud of you. It was from Ethan. For a moment, My heart stopped. The words felt like they were from another lifetime, from a version of me that had believed in second chances. But I had changed. The girl who would have dropped everything for him, the girl who had tried so hard to keep him in my life, was gone. This girl, this new version of me, was stronger, more confident, and more determined than ever to live for herself. I stared at the message for a long time, my fingers hovering over the screen. It was a simple congratulations, but it stirred something deep inside me. Regret? Longing? Maybe. But more than that, it made me realize just how far I had come. I typed a quick reply, then hit send before I could second guess myself. Thank you, Ethan, but I'm moving forward now. I hope you do too. And with that, I let it go. I didn't need a grand moment of closure. The moment was already here. I had already healed. University was everything I had hoped for and more. I threw myself into my studies, my extracurriculars, and the people around me. There were no ghosts of the past haunting me, no shadows of Ethan's mistakes creeping into my life. I was building my future, the future I had worked so hard for. And then, one day, something unexpected happened. I ran into Alexander. It had been months since I had cut ties with him, and the encounter was as surprising as it was jarring. He was standing in front of the library, talking to a group of friends, when his eyes caught mine. There was that flicker of recognition, that flicker of regret. He excused himself from the group and walked over to me. Ava, he said softly, I didn't expect to see you here. I didn't know what to say. A part of me wanted to walk away, to ignore him and keep moving forward with my life. But another part of me, the part that had learned to forgive but never forget, knew this moment needed to happen. For both of us. I didn't expect to see you either, I said, my voice calm but firm. But I guess it's inevitable. We've both moved on. I hope you're doing okay. He nodded, his eyes searching mine for something, maybe an ounce of forgiveness, maybe an ounce of the girl I used to be. I'm sorry for everything, Ava. I really am, he said, his voice earnest, almost desperate. I know I hurt you, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I've changed. I'm trying to be better. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, the weight of regret, but I also saw the person who had once deceived me, who had used me as part of a plan that never should have happened. It didn't mean I hated him. It didn't mean I was angry anymore. It just meant I had let go. I appreciate the apology, Alexander, I said softly, but I've moved on. I have a new life now, and you deserve the same. You deserve to move forward too. He smiled, albeit sadly. I hope you're right. I hope you find what you're looking for, Ava. I already have, I said, the words clear and certain. I had found myself, and that was all I had ever needed. The years that followed were filled with growth, laughter, and new experiences. I made incredible friends, traveled, learned more about myself than I ever thought possible. I grew into the person I always knew I could be, the person I was meant to be. As for Ethan, I heard about him here and there in passing. He was still at the same school, still trying to fix things with Leela. But that was his journey now, not mine. We had both taken different paths, and it was the best thing that ever happened to us. As for Alexander, we never became close again. We were civil when we crossed paths, but the trust was gone. I had learned my lesson. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some people come to teach you something, and then they move on. But through all the heartache, through all the betrayal, I had become stronger. I had become my own person. One evening, as I walked across campus, the sun setting behind me, I couldn't help but smile. I had finally gotten to where I needed to be, alone, but not lonely, confident, but not arrogant, and ready for whatever life threw my way. Because I knew, now more than ever, that I was the one who held the pen. I was the one writing my own story. And this story, it was just beginning.